This is the Page Publishing Book Club. How you doing? I'm your host, Alice Stockton Rossini. Thomas Courtney was chairman of the board of trustees for the Oppenheimer Funds before he retired. Impressive enough, right? But his dad was a New York Yankee before the Depression ended his career in 1928. Needless to say, baseball was big at that house, but when he hit his coach with an inside fastball, Thomas turned to track, which worked out pretty well considering he won the 800 meter at the Melbourne Olympics in 1956 and held the world record. What a story you will find in his book entitled The Inside Track. Thomas.
Yes, and I also anchored the 4x400 relay, so I got 2 goals.
And how old were you?
22 or 3.
Was your dad proud of you?
Oh, he was, yes. I graduated from Fordham University in 1955. We had a small but a good team. And actually, in my junior year, we went out to the Coliseum relays, and I anchored the 2-mile relay that broke the world's record. So my time as a senior in college, I won the National Collegiate Championship, and I qualified for time to run in the Olympics. So I had been in the Air Force ROTC at school, but my last year was in between Korea and Vietnam, and they said if you can't fly, you can't get a commission. That was really upsetting, to say the least. I felt they had welched on me. But anyway, they were recruiting heavily to get guys to run in the service because we were in the Cold War with Russia at that time. So track became a big, big sport. And they agreed to let me come in the Air Force for 3 years, but only as a sergeant. And he said, if you come in the Army, it's only 2 years, and I will guarantee you will be given sufficient time to train for the Olympics. Okay, my main objective was to go to the Olympics. So I went into the Army, and I would go out at 11 o'clock at night after everyone went to bed, and there was a fence with lights along it, and I would run along that fence. And a short time later, the commanding officer of the base would walk by, and he said, what are you doing out here? I said, I'm training for the Olympics, and I was guaranteed I would have time, but they won't give it to me. He says, you get up at 5 in the morning? I said, yes, sir. He said, you go to bed at 10 o'clock? I said, no, sir. I go out here and run. And the next day, we go out to bivouac down at Fort Dix. And the first thing that happened was they had 2 of us jump in a trench and throw live grenades. And it had gotten so cold that when I threw the grenade, I came back into the trench, and I still had it on my hand, and it stuck to my hand. And the other guy says, throw it again, which I did, and peeled the skin right off my hand.
Oh, my gosh.
I thought, this is going to be a long week out here at bivouac. At lunchtime, I hear, Private Courtney, report to the gymnasium for Olympic training at 12 o'clock. I thought, what a lucky thing that commanding officer seen me out there and cut this order. So,
and this shaped you. This shaped you for success down the road, didn't it?
Well, I had on the refrigerator at home, there were 2 things that it said. One, it said, the champion wins but does a little more. And then the other one was persistence and determination. Well, determine success on what you're doing.
Nothing in this world will take the place of persistence. Talent will not. Nothing is more common than unsuccessful men with talent. Is that the one you're talking about?
That's
Genius
it. Right?
will not. It's hanging
That's
on my
the
wall,
quote.
Thomas.
Oh, that's great.
Oh,
and
that's so
it had a major impact on me, and still does, in that I felt the need to write that and let my grandchildren and other youths who are trying to strive in some endeavor to think about that. There was a guy named Arnie Soule was at the University of Pittsburgh. In college, I had been winning all the races, and this guy came along in the last year of my college thing, and he beat me every time we ran. In the indoor nationals, Auden Boysen, the great half-miler from Norway, had come over to run, and Soule won the 1,000 indoors and the new world record. Boysen was second, and I was third. And the papers the next day had the headlines, Boysen's quote, take care of Arnie Soule. He is your next Olympic champion. And the next week I was supposed to run again against Soule. And my coach, he moved me to a different event. And he said, Tom can't beat Soule. Here was my great motivator giving up on me, and he put me in the 600, and I was so upset. I couldn't sleep, couldn't believe that my coach would do that to me. And I lost the 600 too. And then I woke up the next day, and I said, okay, I'm going to beat Arnie Soul, and I'm going to prove my coach wrong. And from that day forward, I had an inspirational workout every day, and my results reflected that. By the time we went out to run in the Olympic trials, I beat Arnie Soul and made the Olympic team.
All right, man, it is so true. Persistence and determination are omnipotent, and we can thank Calvin Coolidge for that. All right, John Harvey owns a business that sells commercial real estate and securities offerings. He says his book, written with two partners, will introduce new concepts in real estate investing to the nation. The name of his book, Modern Real Estate Investing, the Delaware Statutory Trust. John.
It's basically allows individuals with as little as $100,000 to invest in large institutional grade commercial properties that are worth between 50 to 100 million. Basically properties they wouldn't normally be able to purchase unless they were buying it in a REIT, a real estate investment trust. And the disadvantage to those REITs is that they don't enjoy the tax deferral of a like-kind exchange. So about 16 years ago, the IRS issued a revenue ruling that allows you to structure a commercial real estate deal that would allow for co-interest, multiple investors, but still qualify for a 1031 exchange.
Okay.
So it's a little bit complicated, but that's why we wrote the book, to kind of explain it. It's 328 pages.
Well, you say that the Trump tax plan is affecting a lot of businesses like this, right?
Trump tax plan was actually, excellent. It preserved Section 1031 exchanges. We kind of have a catchphrase, the DST or 1031 is really one of the last tax shelters in America. There's no other real shelters out there. But with a 1031, you can defer all your capital gains and depreciation recapture through your lifetime. And you also get the tax shelter of the depreciation on the properties. You could own property in your IRA or in your SEP, and you have to wait till you're retired, to be able to or cash out. With 1031, you can continue to buy property and defer the gain. So you buy a piece of property, say appreciates over, maybe 5 years that you hold it. Instead of selling it, paying the tax, and then only reinvesting the net gain, you can, in a 1031, you can roll over the entire proceeds from the sale into a new property of equal or greater value. People, what we call, they swap till they drop. You basically can continue to defer any gains, paying tax on any of the gains all the way through your lifetime if you continue to exchange, and then your heirs get a step up in basis. And that was also preserved in the tax code. There was some thought of doing away with the estate tax,
right?
And so we wouldn't really have a step up in basis, but that was preserved as well. And so when you ultimately it passes to your heirs, they can then sell it and not pay any tax because they just their basis is the value of what they inherited at. Got people who maybe they bought a home and they got first married and then they had kids and they outgrew it, but instead of selling it, they kept it as a rental.
Right.
And that property appreciated, over 10 years or so. They're renting it out, so they're getting some cash flow, but they don't want to hassle with the management. They get guys in there that can't make rent, or they get calls for leaky toilets or whatever. So they want to keep that equity making cash flow for them, but they don't want to manage it. They 1031 exchange, and then they get into these large, institutional properties like 500 unit Class A apartment complexes, professionally managed, or they buy a portfolio of triple net, like Walgreens and CVS pharmacies, or they buy senior housing centers. And what's nice is because it's only $100,000 minimum, our clients, in most cases, they have $200,000 or $300,000 of built-up equity. So they can go from one single-family house, that concentration, they can exchange it into, let's say, three. They had $300,000. They can put $100,000 in multifamily. They can put $100,000 triple net retail with some of the best companies in America, and they can put $100,000 into senior care centers, for example. Mm-hmm. So they've got diversification, and they've got better cash flow. They've got high credit tenants, and they hadn't to pay any tax to make that that move. But we got the book, and every client we give it to, we get a sale because it's a phenomenal book and it explains the whole thing, and it makes us out to be the professionals. We're also advertising it, on social media, on Facebook. We've got a Facebook ad, so we're very pleased.
All right, John, thank you. Mustafa Sharif takes us on his journey from his village in the Western Sudan to the United States, where he earned his doctorate. His book is entitled I Villager, My Lifetime Journey from Cocoa Land to America. A difficult journey, to say the least, Mustafa.
It took me many years, actually, from Cocoa Land even to navigate my way out of the country. I mean, I shouldn't be talking to you right now because, probability-wise, there wasn't any chance of me, being here talking to you, actually. The place was so remote and education was forbidden, and we were just in the middle of nowhere. And so the chances, of me branching away and getting educated when the whole community thinks education is a bad thing. And so I was just one that was miraculously had the opportunity. And then I saw light and I just took advantage of that and I worked hard.
The opportunity presented itself to get out of that village.
Absolutely. Majority of the population are in the agriculture business, shifting agriculture. There is hardly anything actually other than that, even today. And there's no development. And at a point in time, when I was given the opportunity to go to school, I saw in school the only way out. And from a very early age, I took advantage of that and I progressed.
What happened to the rest of your family?
Majority of them were still there. The situation hasn't improved, and I guess the news about the country is in every channel. If not, even nowadays, there are strikes. And so over the last, 40, 50 years, nothing has changed. And, so in fact, before you called me, there were just demonstrations in the capital at this very moment about, living conditions over there. So, and then the wars in many parts of the country, and so much so that the southern part of the country decided to secede. So we are hoping for a better system in place, better governance, resolution to the issue of wars and disparities and economic development and things like that. So, we have a lot of work to do.
What did you end up doing here in the U.S.?
My first job was assistant manager at Wells Fargo Bank in Palo Alto. But I came here with an MBA from Britain. So I was able to go to Britain and do some postgraduate studies. And then from there, I went and worked in the Middle East for some years. Then I migrated to the States.
Are you able to help your country in any way?
I am very much involved in what is happening there. I visited the place after many, many years, but I did build a couple of classrooms for a school in the village, and I have a program for building a health vocational center in the village. This is something I've been working on for like 10 years because I was teaching at Texas A&M University where I did my doctorate degree at the College of Architecture. So we had some designs for the center. So the ultimate goal is to use the proceeds of this book sale to help finance the creation of a health and a vocational center in Cocoa Land. This is a long overdue opportunity to give back to the community, if you like. The physical infrastructure of the health center is going to also provide vocational training so that you can have medical technicians and midwives, and then vocational training in other aspects and education for women. And there's lots of land there, and so we're going to use it in order to have sustainable farming. And so these are the ideas that I have in mind. It more or less highlights and explains the disparity in living conditions between Cocoa Land and the rest of the world. But bridging such a gap is possible, doable, and attainable, if you will. And all it takes is a hard work and focus. And my experience is tantamount to opening the doors for others who find themselves in similar conditions to mine to go get it. And nobody should settle for less in life and accept that as a fate or fact of life, and try a different direction for opportunities and prospects for success elsewhere. I think every migrant has a story to tell. And this is mine in its crudest form, to say the least. So nothing in the book is conventional because it's a chart of my routes in life and mine alone. So my experience might, encourage others to write about their own, and then together we may make a difference in the world. That's the ultimate goal.
Well, Mustafa, I'll tell you what, you're an inspiration. Thank you. We have to take a quick break, but we are coming right back. This is the Page Publishing Book Club.
Have you written a book and want to get it published? Then now's the time to call Page Publishing at 800-204-6099 and do it immediately. You see, they're looking for authors of all types of books, and unlike most publishers, Page Publishing will take the time to review most of the books submitted to them, and they'll even give you their feedback. And if they like what they read, Page Publishing will get your book into bookstores and for sale online at Amazon, the Apple iTunes Store, and other outlets. They'll handle everything: copyright protection, printing, cover art, publicity, and editing. So if you've written a novel, a children's book, a cookbook, inspirational work, a book of poetry, or biography, and want to get it published, then you need to call Page Publishing and do it immediately. Call 800-204-6099 now for your free author submission kit. Your road to fame and fortune could very well start with this simple phone call. For your free author submission kit, call Page Publishing at 800-204-6099.
We're back on the Page Publishing Book Club. I'm your host, Alice Stockton Rossini. Mark Bauble is a computer programmer and a poet, and he's been writing long enough. It was time for him to finally publish his first book. It is entitled Something New. Mark.
I just put a collection of poems together. It was supposed to be a sample of an upcoming book, but I tried to do self-publishing, and I just didn't have the money to do it.
So you wrote a book called Something New, and it's a collection of poems from the last 17 years?
Yeah, actually, when I first started writing, I probably had, within the first few months, a number of poems that I liked and I wanted to print. And I've been writing ever since, so there's a lot of poems I want to publish, but that was my first collection.
How many are there?
It's 33 pages. Yeah, it's a very small book.
Are they long poems?
Some of them are. Some of them are pretty short. Some talk about the sun or the ocean. I wrote a poem for a cat that died for one of my friends. A lot of them talk about God, friendship, something about a storm, even rainbows.
So all these years of writing poetry, have you ever read them publicly?
Yeah, I currently go to a writing group and read my poems there, and I've heard nothing but good things about it. Everybody all throughout the years has encouraged me to, write a book. That's kind of how it got started.
Yeah. Has the writing group helped you with your writing?
It's a creative writing group, and they help you be a creative writer. And a lot of people there that are new learn how to publish their writings, and it's ran by the VA. I served in the Navy 6 years.
Do you write about your service at all?
Not yet. I have a Facebook account, so I made some posts to my friends and that. I've given a couple of copies away. I did, through this book writing club, meet with this professor who has a website for veterans that want to publish their stories, and she does have a post out there for my book. And I also sent a copy to the VA library here in Pittsburgh to set up a display, to show veterans we can accomplish things and anything's achievable. I guess you can, do stuff and be successful.
That's great.
Yeah, I am doing some stuff. I mean, I know it's a small book, but, the poems really draw you in and just make you think about stuff. And I guess if there was a common thing to the poems right now is basically on choices you make.
And how they affect you.
Right. The consequences or just to think before you act, you
Right. Oh
know.
boy, think before you act. I'm going to learn that someday, I swear. Thank you, Mark. Russell Mosley is a retired bakery manager who now has time to play bass and write. His first book, entitled The Oath of Innocence, is about some elementary school kids who pulled off one of the biggest bank robberies in history and in the end decided they'd put the money to good use. Russell.
When I was like 7 or 8, we moved, and out of my brothers and sisters, I was the only one that stayed awake, through the entire ride. And when I started writing it down, I said, well, personally, it was just going to be just for me. Then I just said, hey, I'm going to, make it kind of a little bit more interesting and put it where maybe other people will be interested in it. The main character is Lonnie. When they came from Arkansas to Michigan, his older brother got a job in a bank, and the son talked his father into putting money into the bank that he worked in and found out all his money was taken, $25,000. The bank president was taking the money, told him that, just don't investigate it because all this money will come back to him. And so he decided to investigate. The bank president fired him, and then he decided to rob the bank. And then they, went to do the operation. He decided that, hey, look, this is not what way we were brought up, so we're not going to do this here. So he ended up going to the army, which would have money coming in. And then his brother was so pumped up that he went, tried to rob the little corner liquor store. So he ended up going to jail for 5 years. Okay, now that's when Lonnie heard the older son tell the father that all his money was taken, and he would try to do anything he can. So he got this Lonnie character got with his sister and his brother and a best friend, which is also from some of the South, and they tried to do what they can to help out. And as he was moving from his room to his brother's room, he was, came across this auto magazine, and inside the magazine was all the plans that they had, that his brother had written out. So he got all his brothers and sisters and told them that, okay, now I know a way that we can get the money. Okay, we'll rob a bank, and it just won't be any bank. So then it basically robbed the bank. They only wanted $25,000, and the bank, since they knew where the rookie teller sat, so they went to her, and she was so scared that she gave them over $500,000. So once they got back, they tried to find a way to get the $25,000 to their parents, and the money that they had, the extra money. Of course, they couldn't take it back to the bank, so they decided to bury the money, and they buried it under the doghouse. And then they made an oath among themselves that they wouldn't say nothing to nobody about it. 40-some years later, they take $25,000 and they drop off $25,000 as a charity mission. When they robbed the bank, everything fell right into place. So my greatest thing with the book is that, there's a 1 in a billion chance that they can go through this entire operation and nothing happen to them. So that's that 1 chance in a billion, and everything fell right into place for them.
So that's what you're hoping will happen for you.
Yes. Navigating the impossible and devotion to family. And once you read the story, you'll see how all that came into play.
All right, Russell, good enough. Finally, Barbara Shoemaker wants to give back in a big way to her hometown of Flint, Michigan, where poisoned water made national headlines. She said the kids there need to be uplifted, and she hopes her book entitled The Poetry will help her spread a little happiness.
My art, my writing can cure any problems. It's like therapy. It just takes me to a new place. It's really great. It's a book for anybody who wants to laugh. I mean, I think laughter is healing. I love hearing laughter. I love being able to laugh. That's why I wrote a lot of this down. It just kind of came to me as a gift from God in a stressful time of my life. And I wrote it down because it seemed really important. And I've shared it with people who encouraged me to get on this path. When I was writing it in the 90s, my kids were young, and I would take it to their schools and read it and teach it. And that worked out really well. But this book is like little stories, kind of stepping off the edge of reality, looking at things from a different point of view. Some of the things that are in it are the freckle farm, which is where freckles grow on people's faces, fairies that live in the dark, and they visit little girls at night, and they tangle their hair, having parties in their hair while they're sleeping. A vampire who is trapped in his castle because he's afraid of the dark. He can't go out at night. Yeah, laughter. That's what I focus on. It's like 12 or 13 poems with pictures and alternate reality thrown in. Dandelion ghosts are haunting my grass. tiny trick-or-treaters caught without their masks, heads that hold 100 suns to decorate my lawn. They'll dissolve like magic if the wind should yawn. Hop aboard, the wind cries, plucking at the fluff, scattering 1,000 seeds with a single puff. Dandelion ghosts were here at mischievous play, but then the wind came and blew them all away. That's one. Boris. Boris is the vampire who's afraid of the dark.
Okay.
He watches from his castle, and if you're out walking in the fall and the cold and the creepy dark, and you feel somebody watching you, you're probably being watched, but don't necessarily be afraid, because whatever you think is chasing you is not really chasing you. That's the idea of that one.
You said that when you were younger, you would go into your kids' schools and read it. Are you still
Yes.
able to do that?
My children and my sisters and I we went to a bookstore in Flint and performed it in a poetry reading. What I would love to do is I would love to see this book being performed on a stage by children, particularly where the children need to be lifted up. Okay, and that is where I live. There's a lot of poverty around me. And I would love to see this help society. That's my goal. Because where I live, we need it. We've had the poisoned water here, schools that feed the children 3 meals a day in Flint because it's needed. And this is the kind of thing that could be used for social betterment in my community, which is what I want, which is why I went into schools and read it. I think it has something to contribute.
Well, I hope so. Thank you, Barbara. You know what? Every author has something to contribute, and we try every week to communicate that. I mean, we can't all win Olympic medals in track and then go on to have a wildly successful career to write about, but we all have something to share, a thought, a feeling, an experience. You know what I'm talking about? Now all you have to do is write it down, send it in, and then we'll hook you up here on the Page Publishing Book Club. In the meantime, if you missed anything at all, just download our podcast at 710WOR.com. Available anytime you want. I'm Alice Stockton Rossini. See you next time.